Hey guys, it's me, Gavin. Doom Eternal is a hard game for me to talk analytically about. If you know me personally in any capacity, you've probably heard me talk about a piece of media as if it were my job to critically review it. But when it comes to Doom Eternal, I always feel like I have to make side comments or exceptions. I end up repeating the sentiment that I have fun with the game, that I'd even call it a good game, but that has pretty gaping flaws. And when I say that Eternal is a good game, I really do mean it. It's a solid 8 out of 10. Not that you witless fucks know what that means. I completely expect to get responses to that number that are either too low or too high. And just so you know, this isn't a review of Eternal, at least not in the traditional sense. The game's good, I just want to talk about all my criticisms of it. Partially because I believe that Doom Eternal fails in objective game design quite often, and because it disappointed me as a sequel to Doom 2016. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I really do enjoy Doom Eternal and its predecessor. Otherwise, I don't think I would have made this my first full analytical video. I guess it's a Smash one, but we don't talk about that. So please know that I only criticize this game so harshly because I have enjoyed it enough to play it a lot. I believe that in the general scope of the internet, this game gets viewed very often by what it does right and not as often by what it does wrong. The general consensus around the game is that it's good, but aside from the contentious DLC, I rarely ever hear about the flaws. Every now and then I'll have little comments for myself on screen to supplement what I'm talking about, which I don't consider necessary to the video if you're just a listener, but if you find yourself wondering what exactly I might mean by a statement, or if you just want to see something funny, it might be in those notes. So please, indulge me for a little while, and let's get to the good stuff. Okay, I get that the story and presentation isn't exactly the defining part of the Doom series experience, but Eternal's issues are so annoying that I have to bring them up. Plus, there are a few key points that I believe do heavily impact the game, so they will be important. All of Doom's cutscenes take place in the first person for two reasons. For one, Doomguy is a self-insert character, so this makes it easier to do just that. You can imagine more or less what Doomguy is thinking, which effectively just means you're role-playing as him.
Interest in their world was purely for the betterment of mankind. Everything has clearly gotten out of hand now, yes.
And two, because your limited view of the world makes the story feel much simpler, which it is. When Doomguy throws some stupid fucking monitor, you aren't focused on the ramifications of this demonic invasion or whatever the hell some dude is telling you to do, because the only thing in your view is a claustrophobic room you've been in, and the only thing you're thinking of is where to find more zombies to kill. Ooh, new shotgun. In Eternal, however, we completely throw this philosophy out. We see Doomguy suiting up and it instantly feels like it's not the same person from 2016. It's not you. You aren't seeing things from his perspective, you aren't focused on what he's focused on. Hell, you even see his face for a second. According to id, we were given third-person cutscenes so that we could get a better idea of who the Doomguy is and what he's doing. But my problem with that is, if you ask anyone with cursory knowledge of Doom, or has even just seen memes of Doomguy on the internet, they probably have a pretty good idea of what Doomguy might want to do. When Samuel Hayden says, "Doomguy, don't destroy the Argent energy, it'll keep demons around but we need it," and Doomguy kicks shit out of an Argent filter, it isn't exactly a fucking mystery what Doomguy wants. Hell, Eternal wants to have so much fun with the fucking rip and tear line, but suddenly Doomguy's a deep enough character that we need more cinematic cutscenes to tell us what his deal is?
Guts. Huge guts. Kill them. Must kill them all.
But you know what? That isn't even the part that pisses me off. You could try to argue to me why third-person cutscenes actually work for Doom. You'd be wrong, but you could try. But the thing is, you don't even have to. In fact, neither do I. Since according to id, we're not making an immersive cinematic experience, we're making a video game. id, did you play the fucking game that you made? How are you going to try and tell me that you're not making a cinematic experience when the camera perspective used in Eternal's cutscenes over Doom's is near universally known as the more cinematic one of the two? How are you going to say that you're not making a cinematic experience when Eternal's story is so complicated that half of it has to be read in pages of codex entries? Which reminds me, the codex. This matters to the gameplay section of the video, so listen closely. The codex entries of Eternal have a slightly different role than their 2016 counterparts. While 2016's codexes were solely focused on lore and world building, Eternal's entries are focused on tutorials and lore diarrhea. And diarrhea truly fits Eternal's codex. Look at these, Jesus Christ! For reference, some of these entries have higher word count than the entirety of my story and presentation section up until now. All of this to explain the shitty story of Eternal. If you cared about the story of 2016, all you really needed was in the cutscenes. You had the codex entries to fill in the information you wanted more of from the characters of the setting, but none of it really mattered, and if you didn't care, you never had to open the codex once. But in Eternal, not only is the story borderline schizophrenic without the codex, you'll almost certainly have to open the codex at least once. Whether it's for gameplay reasons that I'll bring up later, or if the main story doesn't make sense to you, which it won't, the game forces you into that codex, especially since the codex houses the game's many pop-up tutorials. In Doom, when a new enemy came up, it was imposing and awesome. You know absolutely nothing about this new enemy other than what you can observe before and during it's time to gun it down. Sometimes you don't even get that time. And afterwards, you get a codex to tell you its name and lore. You didn't even have to open the codex if you just wanted to know its name. Hey guys, editing Gavin here. So I recorded the audio for this video first, and then I went to go get footage. And it turns out that the example that I present here of the Kako demons in Doom 2016 never existed. It kind of fucks up my script if I just cut the audio out, so what I'm going to do instead is present this like a hypothetical. So just imagine this is me making a hypothetical example of what I think would be good game design in a hypothetical situation that definitely did not happen. Okay? I remember when the Kako demon first appeared to me in Doom. Two of these blank-eyed demons with huge jaws, slowly floating towards you while shooting fireballs. The way they spawn gives you just enough time to observe, think, and determine your method of execution. Two of them spawn and at different distances, giving you room to experiment with evasion and weapons. It's all about player choice and experimentation on the fly. In Eternal, you get a pop-up telling you what to do to a Kako demon and what it does before one ever even appears for you to fight. Exactly a few seconds after you just got a pop-up telling you about your frag grenades. Is this a fucking joke? Assuming you never played 2016, the natural reaction to this pop-up in Eternal should be something along the lines of, what the fuck is a Kako demon? Did I pass one earlier? Is one going to pop up now? The Kako only shows up after a hop, skip, and jump into the next room, but the distance between the pop-up and the actual fight is long enough that the wait is jarring, but short enough to the point where you wonder why there was even a distance between the two in the first place. Reading the pop-up, getting to the room, and implementing the information you just learned is paced horrifically. At least put the pop-up during the Kako's introduction, or let me play with grenades before the Kako, or have there be more than one Kako. Or have the Kako be the first enemy to spawn in, as opposed to fucking Clint Eastwood over here. I'm no expert on game design, but let me make an example of a good way to push a player in the right direction by using just the game's mechanics. Imagine the same situation, but the first thing you see out of the train car is a Kako demon drifting towards you. Eternal's grenades are on a cooldown, so after the player implements the knowledge of killing a Kako with a grenade, they go into the next room where they're immediately greeted by a Kako and a dozen other demons, which means that they'll more than likely resort to just gunning the Kako down, especially since they just unlocked a new mod for the weapon of choice. This would subtly let the player know that Kakos can be killed by using normal means as well, but they won't be as fast as just, nading them, which might inspire the strategy of focusing on using grenades on any present Kakos. If they're lucky with their mod choice, they might even discover that the shotgun sticky grenades can also instantly stagger Kakos. With Eternal's current design, the player will likely kill one Kako with the grenade, and by the time the next one comes up, the grenade is probably going to be off cooldown. This has the potential to negatively condition the player. If grenades are the premier way to kill Kakos, then why use my grenades on anything else? And why waste any weapons on a Kako if grenades can take them out in one go? More enemies can spawn in any time, and I'd rather not be caught without a grenade in the face of a newly spawned Kako. You could say that I can just turn off the tutorials, but they're on by default, and for another reason that I'll state later, I believe that having them on was how the game was meant to be played. Oh god, I've only been talking about a single pop-up and we've already been here for ages. This video's gonna be a nightmare. The game has so many of these shit-ass pop-ups that they get their own spot in the codex. Wouldn't the Kako's weakness be located with the entry on the Kako? Oh hey, info so nice they wanted to tell me twice. Doom Eternal is all about challenge, but they couldn't handle letting you kill one enemy to find out its weakness. Again, this is the strength of 2016's design shining through. You know what? No more codex. Just thinking about it makes my brain hurt, though it's not even the last time I'll mention it. Now we've just got a few little things to get through. The UI is fine. A little bit messy compared to 2016's, but it works. Doom Eternal is a much more complex game than 2016 and has far more tools to use, so an unfortunate consequence of that is a UI with more to show. Though, with the update for the second DLC came in addition to the UI, items are now also displayed around your reticles. You don't have to keep looking to your side to keep track of resources. Finally, good on you, id. On a positive note, I think Eternal is much better at exploration information than 2016. Everything is kept track of nicely, and the map is way more detailed, so you actually know what you haven't done. Plus, there's fast travel at the end of every level, so you don't have to replay the whole thing just to pick up a few extras. Speaking of those extra collectibles though, they can be a bit hit or miss. Cheats are fantastic additions, allowing you to put a fun spin on a replay, which is always great for adding value. The music records are cool, but the only context you'd listen to Doom soundtrack in are during gameplay or on YouTube. The toy models are cute, but I wish they unlocked in-game models if you like in 2016. What do you mean get on with it? Fine, enough stalling. I've mentioned it in passing enough times at this point that I might as well finally give you a summary of Eternal's story. Spoilers obviously if you care. This is the last thing I'll be talking about before we get to the gameplay, so if you don't want spoilers, or if you just don't care, you know where to go. And to some people, I might sound like a massive hypocrite because I criticize others for simply giving synopsis in their analysis videos. However, the important difference is why I'm summarizing the story. Where others do it seemingly to just remind the audience of the plot, I'm doing it to prove a point about Eternal's presentation. In fact, I'm so confident in this point that I encourage most of you to skip the synopsis altogether. This video is mostly for people who've played the game already, and if you've played the game already, you already understand what I mean when I say that its quote about not making a cinematic experience isn't congruent with what they actually put out for Eternal. I've already made what I feel are the most significant points, so again, feel free to skip to the gameplay section. Otherwise, grab a snack and a glass of orange juice. So, at the end of Doom, we retrieve the demonic crucible because Samuel Hayden told us that it would stop the demonic invasion. But in a twist ending, Hayden takes the crucible and sends us somewhere unknown. If you were hoping this unknown location would be revealed in Eternal, it isn't. At least, not explicitly. It can be assumed that the Fortress of Doom, the space station that the opening cutscene places you in, is where Doomguy was sent, considering that we're never actually told how we got here, but even this assumption leaves a lot of holes. Okay, if Hayden sent Doomguy here, then how did he know it existed? Again, it can be assumed that Hayden read about it when he discovered Doomguy in 2016, but if teleportation to the Fortress of Doom was always possible, then why wasn't it utilized or mentioned in 2016? You could say that Hayden wanted to use it as a timeout corner for Doomguy in case he ever needed to send him away for whatever reason, but that doesn't really make sense because A, the Fortress has a ton of resources for making Doomguy stronger, and I doubt Hayden would want to deal with a souped up, pissed off Doomguy after being put on a timeout, and B, the Fortress of Doom has a fully functioning teleporter that seems to be able to go anywhere in the universe as long as it's powered up and Vega has knowledge of it. And speaking of Vega, it's real convenient that we happen to save this asshole to a flash drive before we left the UAC facility. Otherwise, the Fortress of Doom wouldn't have functioned at all. Anyway, the only way the Hayden timeout theory makes sense is if Doomguy, the character known for being tenacious, just gave up on going back to Mars, also assuming Vega wouldn't let him, or assuming that he even needed Vega. This is all assuming that Hayden is omnipotent and knew Doomguy would need to be on Earth X amount of years later for the very beginning of Eternal. Which, considering the DLC, isn't actually entirely out of the question, but that's a can of lore that I choose to kick down the road into a ravine. Something else to be said about Eternal's opening is that it's far longer than Doom's. Doom's intro is about 40 seconds long before you're able to control your character, while Eternal's is about 2 minutes and 40 seconds long. It doesn't sound like a lot, but for a game that's not a cinematic experience, it sure is weird how they made the motherfucker almost 4 times as long. Hey guys, editing Gavin here. Just want to let you guys know that if you're getting tired of me mentioning that quote, then don't worry. There are countless ways that you as a human can go fuck yourself. Have you ever heard of autofellatio? Overall, it takes both games about 4.5 minutes to kill the first imp of the game, but Eternal had you watch a 2.5 minute cinematic first. To be fair, this isn't to completely let Doom off the meat hook either. While Doom has you playing the game earlier, it also interjects that gameplay with unskippable hologram watching and monitor touching. This isn't even bringing up that unbearable scene from later in the game where you sit in an office staring at Hayden's cock for what feels like an eternity. Though keep in mind that only one of these games wasn't trying to be a cinematic experience. I've spent all this time on the fucking intros. I'm never gonna finish this fucking video. Anyway, after spending an unreasonable amount of time debating the ethics of assisted euthanasia, we move on to killing the first Hell Priest, which turns out to be way easier than anyone expected. I guess when you quickly lunge at a Hell Priest and don't waste your time meandering, it isn't all that hard to kill them. Fascinating. And with that, a third of the game is done. We move up the elevator to the other Hell Priest Bible study and surprise them. Then we walk around menacingly, cock our shotgun, and they're gone. You know Doomguy, the merciless demon slayer that not 10 minutes earlier killed a Hell Priest on sight? Yeah, he just lets the other two go without so much as an attempt on their lives. Anyway, God shows up and tells us some cryptic shit, and neither of us die each other because... We go back to the Nether Fortress only to find out that our space GPS is missing some AA's, so we gotta visit King Doom to get one. We pay him a visit, but he tells us that what we're doing is mega cringe, so we shouldn't. We ignore him with no present or future consequence. 20 bucks! And take the AA. Then we find ourselves in hell to get the other AA from the guy who betrayed our whole Order of Knights. He has a name, but fuck if I know it. He betrayed us because the demons were like, if you betray the Sentinels, we'll totally revive your son. But it turns out the demons weren't all that trustworthy. Who knew? And they turned his son into the embodiment of evil. So because he got pranked, the betrayer sent himself to live in hell, presumably eating the flesh of imps to survive. He also gives us a hilt. This won't be important, so it's never gonna get brought up again. Now that our space GPS works, we're off to the Arctic. This is another problem with presentation in Eternal. In Doom, all the places we go to are connected and have a sense of unity in the setting while still being unique from each other. The destroyed Argent facility gives you a lot of open spaces to fight in, both outdoors and in, while the advanced research facility has more hallways and lab designs, but both fit into the architectural and color-coded aesthetic of the UAC's buildings. In Eternal, we just kinda hop around wherever we want. Though you could say this doesn't matter much, because remember, this is a video game, not a cinematic experience. If you want to argue that having a wider variety of environments is better than having cohesiveness between them, then fine. I'd even agree with you somewhat. I just think that one cohesive setting is cooler. The second Hell Priest blue balls us a bit, so we follow him even deeper into the Arctic to fight the Doom Hunter, supposedly the ultimate challenge for Doomguy. Which is why we kill 3 of them, and then they become a normal enemy from here on out. I know it's supposed to make the player feel strong and badass, but narratively it doesn't really add up why the priest was so excited for what's a pretty average enemy. It would have made more sense for like a tyrant or something. Good thing this isn't a cinematic experience. We give the second Hell Priest a good old-fashioned French Revolution, and we're on our way to the third, if we knew where the fuck he was. Good thing our old pal Samuel Hayden, who betrayed us, knows where the third Hell Priest is. How does he know but Vega doesn't? We go to the military compound where Hayden's at to get the location out of him, but it turns out Hayden got a bit fucked up when he decided to let the demons have a taste of his blade, which we take back by the way. After comedically pulling Hayden out of stasis, a Marauder shows up to stop us. These guys are basically just us if we turned evil. Trust and believe I'll have more to say about the Marauder when we get to the gameplay section. We jack Hayden into the mainframe of the Fortress of Solitude so that we can find out where the last priest is. But it turns out he's off-world, and for some reason the only way to get to him is to go to the center of Mars. We pay a visit to our friends at the UAC, the ones who are indebted dead at least, so we can do something about that Mars core problem. And in a genuinely awesome moment, we use the Super BFG to blast the fuck out of Mars, take the mini BFG for ourselves, and spacewalk our way over to the core. We come to the planet the priest is hiding on, and are shown a few bits of lore. Turns out, the Doom guy in 2016 and Eternal is the same one from the classic Doom games. The good ones, at least. Apparently, Doom guy gets a super strike from an enemy betrayer, so I guess there's a lot of that going around. We fight a demonic gladiator, and then we kill the last Hell Priest. But wait, killing those of Sentinel blood on Sentinel grounds is a big no-no for us, so our punishment is to just leave. Riveting consequences from Doom Eternal. God EMPs the box fort, so we use the demonic crucible we got back to power the Fortnite. But now we're down a crucible, and we've got to go get one of our own. After a pretty long level, we get our crucible back, and really show the demons the way of the blade. Oh yeah, this sword. You know, the one that was used in pretty much all the promotion for this game. Yeah, you get it like 3/4 of the way through the story, and you don't even get to use it nearly that often. Deflating, I know. We go to heaven to interrupt God's plan to resurrect the icon of sin, the embodiment of evil. So remember that hilt we got from the betrayer earlier that was never mentioned till this very moment? Yeah, it was actually a knife that we used to stab the icon's heart. But instead of killing the icon, as most heart stabbings do, it only breaks God's control over it and it meanders on over to Earth. It sure is a good thing we didn't ask any questions about this thing prior to using it. We finally prove that God is dead, and we leave Vega in heaven after he says some cryptic bullshit. 20 bucks! We return to Earth to kill the icon, and we leave our crucible in its head. Boom. Done. That was a cool, not a cinematic experience, id, which just took up the last 1,000.5 words of my script just to barely summarize. But now we can finally move on to my absolute favorite part of Doom Eternal, and I mean that in more ways than one. I described Doom 2016 as the perfect segue from classic Doom to modern Doom. I'm pretty sure that's why 2016 has the classic levels in it. 2016 feels like classic Doom adapted to a modern shooter, and Eternal should feel like 2016 adapted even further, right? I assume the reason you don't get most of Doom Guy's new Eternal abilities until the second level of the game is that the transition from 2016 to Eternal won't be as awkward. Unfortunately, Doom Eternal's cutscenes aren't the only thing that were fucked from the beginning. Ignoring the fact the Eternal's opening doesn't slap anywhere near as hard as 2016's, the very first gameplay segments already present problems. First thing you might notice, your starting gun this time around is the combat shotgun, as opposed to the infinite ammo pistol from 2016. This is only the beginning of what is one of Doom Eternal's worst flaws, but trust me, we'll get to that. The second thing you might notice, depending on what kind of player you are, is that melee attacks no longer do any damage, which is when I start to get a little bit pissed. It's very common for the average player to not perfectly land a shot and miss out on some damage on a weak enemy, though this could be easily remedied with a quick melee attack right after, at least in 2016. In Eternal, that's gonna be a whole nother shot from you. So between no infinite ammo pistol and the lack of a melee, Doom Eternal seems to be real comfortable with making you waste your ammo. And trust me, we'll get to that. Take a quick walk down the hallway and you're greeted with the chainsaw, just sitting there. Or rather, floating in a very video gamey pickup-esque manner. Ah! I fooled you! You thought we were gonna talk about the gameplay? Story presentation for 100 years! Remember in 2016 when finding a new weapon felt badass because of the context you found them in? An assault rifle in a dead soldier's hands? A minigun in a fiery cave looking ready to face down a horde of demons? A chainsaw lodged in a person's gory chest? Yeah, no, fuck all that in Eternal. But fear not, loyal viewer, for our lords and saviors at id Software have a reason for this change too. Supposedly, people had a hard time finding weapons in 2016, so making them floating green pickups was almost necessary. But I think this is bullshit for a few reasons. For one, both 2016 and Eternal value exploration and the rewards for doing such, but suddenly when some people have trouble finding weapons, some of which had doubles in 2016 for this exact reason, the game's whole vibe has to suffer for it. Which brings me back to the quote from earlier. Apparently this is the video game that they were trying to make. This right here is what id thinks a video game is. It's like they're that middle-aged relative you have who thinks that all video games are 2D platformers where you jump around and get power-ups. Just because something looks more or less realistic does not make it more or less a video game. Part of the experience of a video game is a sense of immersion which Doom managed to capture excellently. How did you guys fuck it up? I just... What am I supposed to say? You fucked it, id. In trying to achieve your vision, not only did you contradict yourself, you didn't even achieve the vision you were going for. By the way, this is the other reason I believe the pop-up tutorials are the intended experience. The floating weapons and literally teleporting you to a tutorial means that it's fair to assume the pop-ups were how the game is meant to be played. So I think it's fair to judge them as I would the rest of the game, is what I would say if I hadn't just fucking fooled you again. So I've been writing this script over the course of... Anyway, upon returning to this game to test out some of my claims, I turned off tutorials and found that Eternal gives you a pop-up tutorial telling you that you need the pop-up tutorials. You can't write comedies funnier than this. So after punching a box, you... Wait... No, I can't do this. I've gone too far off track. I was going to talk about Eternal's gameplay problems in chronological order / appearance, but I can't go on like this. I've teased it for so long that it's basically necessary that I have to talk about it now. We finally got to that. I have to talk about Eternal's first fatal mistake. I have to talk about the ammo problem. Okay, so what do you think Doom 2016's core gameplay loop is? Trick question, the gameplay loop is whatever you make of it. Do you want to shred through a wave with the chain gun? Do you want to get up close and personal and run through demons to try to touch you with the super shotgun? Go for it. You can choose your method of destruction in 2016. This philosophy does not apply as well to Doom Eternal for multiple reasons, and one of them is the ammo problem. In Doom, the maximum ammo count for shotgun shells was 60 shells. In Eternal, it's 24. 24 measly shells to get by with in the endgame. 12 if you exclusively use a super shotgun, and this applies to every weapon in the game. This is for one fundamental reason, because Doom Eternal has a single most efficient way to play. Doom Eternal's gameplay loop is, exhaust your various ammo counts on the necessary demons, and then once you're out, chainsaw a low-level demon for half of it back. This shit sucks. Partially because this means you're going to spend some time in the game running around in circles waiting for your chainsaw to recharge, or to find a zombie to kill. It even made it so that zombies infinitely respawn, so that you'll always have something to chainsaw, which is making a solution for a problem that they created. I know I'm not the only one that feels this way either. Even a short Google search will net you a ton of results for people making the same complaints that I am. I've seen people try to justify this with the chainsaw solution, and that this will encourage the player to use every weapon. But even that's not necessarily true. Since the chainsaw regularly recharges, and at a pretty decent rate mind you, what's stopping a player from just chainsawing the second they run out of ammo for the weapon they like? They'll even consistently profit armor for doing so as well, considering that the flame bell charges even faster, and chainsawing a flamed enemy is instant profit. So what we're left with is the same core gunplay of Doom, but with caveats that seem to only draw focus away from themselves, when they might not even meaningfully impact someone's play experience. And all that's not to mention the thought that maybe a lower ammo count is just less fun to play with. First of all, there's just some weapons that people will like more. In most shooters, I find myself drawn towards shotguns because I like to get in close and do insane damage. This carried over into Doom, obviously. Inversely, I don't really like the plasma rifle. It's best at mid-range and doesn't really have a snappy kickback like the super shotgun, but because of Doom Eternal's criminally low ammo count, I'm forced to either use weapons that I don't like, or resort to the boring game plan. Chainsaw, shoot, wait, chainsaw, shoot, wait, over and over again. Second of all, having a high ammo count that you have to maintain seems more engaging than disengaging from a fight to go chainsaw some poor fuck who never stood a chance and exists solely for this purpose. Near the end of my Doom 2016 campaign, I would be passing through levels with nothing more than the super shotgun and the chain gun. This wasn't because the game gave me more ammo than I knew what to do with, but because of the strategies I implemented and my own efficiency with the weapons I knew and liked best. I could make it so that I never needed to use the other weapons to make my way. It's often said that health in a video game is representative of how many mistakes a player can make. A bad player will make a lot of mistakes and constantly be low on health. A good player won't. Does this mean that we should make a video game where health is so criminally low that offensively engaging with combat might be disincentivized? Maybe, but I'd argue that a better solution is to make it so that health is just as complex to recover as it is to conserve. What if there was a game where aggressive and risky gameplay could be rewarded with health recovery that plays right back into that playstyle? Just food for thought. So to bring this long-winded hypothetical back to ammo, instead of making the ammo count low, make it so that players have the option of conserving or recovering ammo in a consistent way that benefits a wide range of playstyles. For example, have the chainsaw work in tandem with the glory kill. What if after a glory kill, the player enters a rage state for a short time where the next chainsaw will fully refill ammo, making it so that the player has to quickly jump back and forth between focusing on a chainsaw subject and a bullet victim? Or a different idea I had was to make the stagger state be used for more than just a standard glory kill. What if you could choose what to do to an enemy that's been staggered? Melee for health, flame belts for armor, and chainsaw for ammo. All three would kill the staggered enemy, and the choice lies with the player to support their own playstyle. If the player knows that they play risky, they can take the damage reduction offered by having little health but a lot of armor. Players that have big weaknesses can cover them by constantly recovering health, and players that like to pump and dump ammo can get on that chainsaw grind and never stop shooting. Finally, the best players of all can find the perfect mix of all three that make them an unstoppable killing machine. But that's just a theory. As it stands, this is just me dreaming about a solution that we didn't get, and Eternal's current solution to the ammo problem isn't one that really solves anything, and can actually make the flow of combat worse. So player freedom is really the breaking point of Doom Eternal's fucked gameplay, though I can't summarize it to only one section. I started with the ammo problem, but its cold, dead hands extend to other areas of the game, like for example... So, I think that the runes in this game aren't very great overall. I'll categorize them by really good, average, and bad. The good runes are Seek and Destroy, Equipment Fiend, and Punch and Reeve. Seek and Destroy makes glory kills way more manageable in high traffic areas. Equipment Fiend rewards you for using your equipment effectively, and Punch and Reeve rewards you for good positioning and timing. The average runes are Blood Fueled and Air Control. Blood Fueled speeds you up after a glory kill, which can make movement easier, but glory kills are already pretty liberal in how they allow you to move after doing them. Air Control is nice, but Doom Eternal's air movement is pretty capable. Platforming still works, and arenas give you plenty of air options without the rune. In my experience, using the rune only made things harder because it became way easier to overcorrect. The bad runes are Savagery, Dazed and Confused, Saving Throw, and Chrono Strike. Savagery speeds up glory kill animations, but if it was even a consideration that there should be an upgrade to the animation speeds, the normal speed is probably too slow. Besides, there were rarely situations where I missed out on a glory kill because the one I was currently on took too long. Dazed and Confused increases the amount of time staggers go on for, but if you see a staggered enemy, there's no reason not to just, go for it. The only time I've ever run out of time when going for a glory kill was when I got stuck on a pesky piece of level or enemy geometry. Saving throw makes it so that a death blow will leave you at 1 health and slow down time, but Doom Eternal is designed to get you out of these low health situations anyway, so this is really just a crutch for those who somehow don't want to engage with Doom's glory kill system. Chrono Strike slows down time when you right click, but right click is also your weapon mod, so there will be a ton of times where you slow down time when you don't want to. Plus it works on a rechargeable meter, so if you accidentally use a ton of it earlier because of the aforementioned mod problem, then you won't have any left for later. To summarize, the good runes actually enhance the gameplay loop, the average ones might have niche uses if you're lucky, and the bad ones are either redundant or just straight up bad. Now, for no reason in particular, let's compare them to 2016's runes. 2016 shares Dazed and Confused, Seek and Destroy, Savagery, Air Control, though slightly different, Blood Fueled, and Saving Throw with Eternal. Exclusive to 2016 are Vacuum, Ammo Boost, Equipment Power, Armor Defensive, Intimacy is Best, and Rich Get Richer. Most of these runes are great because of how they value player expression and creativity. Intimacy is Best and Equipment Power are the outliers, because all the former does is make stagger demons resist damage, which is only really useful for the in-game achievements that would require that, or if you're in desperate need of glory kills, and the latter just makes equipment more effective, which isn't really saying much in terms of the trash that 2016 gives you. Vacuum increases the range for absorbing ammo and health. This benefits mid and long range players so that they aren't punished for kiting and staying away from the enemies that they kill. Ammo Boost increases the ammo that drops from enemies, and benefits players like to run in guns blazing, or stick to one preferred weapon. Armor Defensive makes glory kills drop armor and benefits players like feeling invincible, because a good player will never get their health touched. Rich Get Richer is my favorite rune. It makes it so that when above 100 armor, ammo is infinite. This benefits players that are good at avoiding damage, or players that like to piss away ammo on guns like the Super Shotgun or Chain Gun. Aside from the specific players that I said the runes benefited, there's another reason that I say that 2016's mods are better for player expression, because the mods can creatively be used in conjunction with each other. My prime example is part of the reason Rich Get Richer is my favorite rune. The Chain Gun in 2016 had a weapon mod called Mobile Turret, which multiplies the rate of fire by 3. The one downside to this mod is that an increased rate of fire means your ammo will start disappearing fast. Unless, of course, that ammo is infinite. Unfortunately, armor is scarce in Doom and can't regularly be replenished by the player. Oh wait a second, used in conjunction with armor defensive, I'm an unkillable stream of insane damage and won't stop until everything is dead. And to top it all off, Vacuum picks up anything that enemies drop, not just health and ammo. So I don't even have to be close to the armor drops to pick them up either, which means I can capitalize greatly off the great range and damage of the chain gun. I can't even begin to tell you how much fun I was having with the strategy I created, some of the fun coming from the fact that I came up with it on my own. I don't believe that Eternal's runes allow for this kind of freedom or synergy in even a fraction of the same capacity. The only one I was able to come up with was Blood Fuel plus Air Control, but that's really just doing what both mods were already doing, just more. If there's any crazy strats that I'm missing, let me know. So to summarize, the runes of Eternal aren't as expressive or useful as the ones in 2016, which is a supporting factor towards Eternal's restricted gameplay. So, did I miss anything? This is a YouTube video, why are you trying to respond? Go to the comments, you demented fuck. Like I said, I prefer to use some weapons over others in Doom Eternal. However, the gunplay of Eternal isn't solely what piece of metal the bullets come out of. Weapon mods allow you to spice up gameplay, and aside from the Super Shotgun, every weapon has 2. But you know what we're doing here, I wouldn't have brought up the mods unless I had a problem with them. The Combat Shotgun has the full auto and Sticky Bomb mods. Sticky Bomb is insanely useful, which is probably why it got carried over from 2016. They stick to enemies, do crazy damage, do AoE damage, insta-kill Kakos, and do extra damage to enemy weak spots. Sticky Bombs are always my go-to. You're probably wondering how full auto could ever compare. Well, remember how I said the max ammo count for shotguns was 24 shells? Well, full auto tears through that ammo like there's no tomorrow. Like the name implies, the mod turns your shotgun into an honorary machine gun, but with the damage of a shotgun. But with such a low ammo count, the mod went unused for a lot of my game. Hell, the only reason I even realized there was an ammo problem was because the full auto mod was the first one I picked when I started the game, but it was nigh on useless to me with the starting ammo count being 16. Full auto is actually kind of an enhanced version of Doom 2016's Charged Burst mod, but in 2016's case, the ammo count was higher, and the burst only fired 3 shots, which gave you increased damage without burning all of your ammo at once. I've seen the argument used that the full auto mod is useful for gun combos, but that's an advanced mechanic, and unless you can get me proof that gun combos are the intended use of full auto, I won't count that as a plus. Another argument I've seen is that full auto's ammo drain can be counteracted with its mastery, which returns shells to you with every full auto kill. The problem with this argument is that the mastery only delays your ammo running low instead of preventing it, and even then it's not delayed for very long. The other option is to use other weapons to weaken a demon first and then finish it with full auto, but that just brings us back in a circle to having to switch guns all the time. The heavy cannon has the micro missile and precision bolt mods. Both mods are actually pretty solid, which is why they're both mostly intact from 2016. But I much prefer the micro missiles. It turns all your shots into mini versions of the shotgun sticky bombs. Precision bolt shots are scoped and do extra damage to weak spots, but unless you have near impeccable aim for quickscoping, this mod forces you to stand still or move slower in a game that punishes standing still. Plus it takes 6 bullets for one scoped shot, so missing is pretty devastating. The plasma rifle has the heat blast and microwave beam mods. Heat blast is pretty useful. It adds some extra damage to your shooting for no extra cost. The charge builds up as you shoot and then using it costs no ammo. But the microwave beam? The microwave beam is a huge crock of shit. I genuinely think it's the worst mod in Eternal. What it does is it locks onto an enemy and slowly drains their health. This is useless for one big reason. The risk vastly outweighs the reward. The reward being guaranteed damage on an enemy without aiming at them or them being able to retaliate. The risk being that you're essentially immobile while using it. Try and take even a fair amount of damage off of an enemy and you'll quickly see your health disappear in most Eternal fights. And to top it all off, it all takes up a shit ton of ammo. So much so that you are probably better off just shooting at it normally using the heat blast. But it gets worse. It gets much worse. That little extra bit we'll save for later. Much later. The rocket launcher has a lock-on burst and remote detonation. The lock-on burst just lets your rockets hone in on enemies, though it almost forces you to use 3 rockets, adding to the problem that shall not be named. Remote detonation allows you to, well, you know. Though I don't use it, because it requires you to keep track of the timing of a high-velocity projectile that I probably shot at or around my target during a fast-paced fight. To me, the rocket exists for the purpose of just kind of hitting whatever I was vaguely aiming at. The game's description says that it could be used for hitting enemies behind cover, but that almost never happens in Eternal, so... The chain gun has mobile turret and energy shield. I don't really see the need to go that deep into them. Like with the heavy cannon, they're both pretty solid mods. Mobile turret slows you down but gives you crazy damage, and energy shield lets you have a shield in front of you while you're shooting. I prefer mobile turret because I'm more offensive than defensive. Finally, the ballista has Arbalest and Destroyer Blade. Again, both mods are pretty alright, though I don't really have a preference because I think the ballista just kind of sucks in general. The ammo cost combined with the charge up time don't really make it all that appealing. So half of Doom Eternal's weapons have a mod that I believe outweighs the other in utility. Not exactly a gold star in player expression, but I'll commend them for not having it as bad as the rest of the game. 2016 had better mods for the combat shotgun and plasma rifle, but aside from that, the mods are about the same quality. Alright, so we talked about the story, it's shit, the presentation, it's shit, and the gunplay, it's lacking. Though, if you think we're done, then I want you to leave my class for not paying attention. Doom Eternal continues the trend of limiting the player even through to its core mechanics. What made Doom 2016 so special was how it made simplicity fun. Demons are pretty simple. They have their attack and movement patterns, but then you deal with them as you see fit. But that was really all that was needed for the gears to turn in a player's head. For example, while functionally Barons and Hell Knights are pretty similar, I took the one difference between them and used that to form a game plan. Hell Knights are melee only, so I'd use the super shotgun since he was always going to be in my face, which meant good damage. Barons are basically just knights with a projectile and more health. I'd use the minigun on the Baron to churn through its health faster, and because I could consistently keep my distance when it was throwing projectiles. This philosophy applies to almost every demon in Arena. In a place with a lot of platforms, Knights and Pinkies will take longer to get to you, so you could afford to take your time with other demons, or use longer range projectiles if that was your prerogative. In a place with a lot of walls, Kakos will be forced to strafe more often, giving you more time to shoot at them. The list goes on. The point is, there is no correct strategy. The examples I just gave you were things that I came up with myself through experience and observation. But how does Doom Eternal handle strategy? Well, we already talked about the Kako Demon and grenades, so now I'll have to tell you how Doom Eternal tells you how you should be playing the game. For one, a ton of enemies are weak to certain types of ammo. No, these are not suggestions, demons will objectively take more damage from these ammo types. And some of these are ass backwards too. Imps will take more damage from the rapid fire bullet types, even though it's usually more time efficient to just use the almost one-shot shotgun on one of the weakest enemies, which the game validates me on with the soldiers, who are weak to shotgun shells. Anyway, Arachnotrons have a turret on top that will constantly harass you with shots. Hypothetically, in 2016, you might just try to avoid it, or maybe you think to take out the Arachnotron first. But fuck thought, am I right? Instead, do as Father Eternal tells you and take out the turret on its head. Another new mechanic Eternal implements is weak spots on an enemy that will make something special happen if you break them. Another thing you'll need the codex for. Weak spots glow red when you hit them, but I definitely wouldn't be aiming at the turret, the smallest target on the demon, on any first impression. You could also just try to shoot every enemy in every spot to try and find the spot yourself, but good luck finding those spots and differentiating which enemies even have spots. So weak spots are unintuitive, yet also necessary, because a lot of weak spots will severely nerf or even just one-shot kill enemies. Essentially, the only reason I hate weak spots so much is because it's one of the laziest kinds of player incentives a game can have. I think the best kind of incentive is just that, an incentive. What if weak spots in Doom Eternal weren't as powerful? Maybe explosives just stop Kakos from moving, or taking out the spider's turret just disables it for a bit. or breaking Mancubus cannons just stops them from using the close range move. As they are now in Eternal, weak spots are so insanely powerful there's almost no reason not to go for them. They're not an incentive anymore, they're just optimal. What else? The Ballista deals more damage to flying enemies, presumably because the devs realized the Ballista wasn't all that great and needed some extra damage for something, or else no one would use it. Doom Eternal has told me to use one of my least favorite weapons for no other reason than because the universe deemed it so. Sure, I could use a Super Shotgun's kick-ass Meathook to fly up to a pain elemental and blast its death in the sky battle, but why would I ever do that when the Ballista just does more damage? Energy shields aren't unbreakable to non-energy weapons, but the advantages for using an energy weapon are so high there's no reason not to use them over everything else. Hitting shields with energy weapons not only breaks them faster, but also makes them explode, damaging every demon around them. So yeah, pretty useful I'd say. So, quick recap. Efficiency trumps out fun in the game constantly. I have to stress the importance of differentiating incentive and efficiency. Incentive is both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. You appeal to the player's emotions and make them want to do a certain action, and then you reward them for picking up on what you're putting down. Efficiency is simply extrinsic. You do it because it is objectively benefiting your goals, regardless of whether or not you find it fun. Well, I see no reason to talk about every single enemy. The only one I really have to cover is the Marauder, and lucky for me, this is actually one of the aspects of Eternal that's generally agreed upon to be pretty terrible, or at the very least pretty contentious. But that's what I'm here to quell, because see, there's only one correct answer about the Marauder. The Marauder is terrible, and if you like and or defend it, I seriously suggest you take a good long listen to Low Tier God, because he might convince you of something that could benefit us all. So what do you like about video games? Fun? Yeah, I thought so. Now, assuming you've played Doom Eternal, do you like the Marauder? Trick question, if you like the Marauder, you hate fun and you should be ashamed. The Marauder was the defining point that connected all the dots in my head that led to my condemnation of Eternal. So if you haven't noticed a theme by now, the connecting thread that spurred the creation of this video is that I believe Doom Eternal's damning trait is its inability to restrain itself from attempting to police how the player plays. If you haven't noticed it until now, or simply aren't convinced, then let's see what the Marauder does for my argument. The most prominent feature of the Marauder is its invincibility during most of its combat. I say most because there are two ways to damage the Marauder without first stunning him, though they aren't exactly efficient or very fun. The first is by shooting the BFG into the air and getting 2 or 3 shots in for the 2 or so seconds that he's preoccupied. I shouldn't have to explain why this is so horribly impractical. Next, the second is by abusing AoE damage. Since they can only block direct gunfire, any rockets, sticky bombs, or grenades that go off behind them will do damage. The reason this option is lame is because firstly, killing the Marauder through AoE damage is going to involve a lot of aiming at the floor and waiting, which I can't imagine most people would find fun in a game like this. Second has to do with an exception, the grenade with the combustion concussion suit upgrade, which will emit a shockwave that stuns all demons for a second, even Marauders, and at a pretty fair range too. However, you only get 2 grenades where you have to wait for a recharge, assuming you also have the double grenade suit upgrade, and the recharge itself is going to be pretty long if you don't also have the cooldown upgrade. Point being, grenades are good, but will either be a damper on resources, or will just be straight up difficult to hit since the shockwave has to go off either in the middle of an attack or behind the Marauder. Okay, now that we've established that gimping the Marauder is simply not worth it, the only thing left is the way the game wants you to fight them. And I don't say this often enough, but let's see how this is a good thing. The Marauder is a complicated enemy in a game of relatively simple encounters, which heightens the stress in a cool way. The Doom Hunter almost did this, but you can blow them up with 2 blood punches and a bit of standard gunfire, so they don't quite meet the standard the Marauder sets. Having an enemy that requires your focus is a nice diversion from the standard gameplay, and can even result in a really cool situation like the double Marauder fight from the first DLC, where you have to balance 2 enemies that both require your attention. But, to pilfer from Egoraptor again, now let's see how this is a poopy bad thing. Since the Marauder is so strict in how you're allowed to engage with it, the most straightforward answer that always comes to mind is simply not engage with it. If at any given point during a Marauder fight I have to wait for him to allow me to attack, during which I could be assaulted by any other demon in the room, why would I not just kill every other demon in the room first? Try as he might, the Marauder can't catch up with you if you decide to completely disengage, so, I'll just do that. The reason Doom's Gallery of Demons is so fun to fight is because you can engage with any one of them at any time to make the fight easier for yourself however you see fit. But the Marauder is the only enemy that encourages you not to engage them, because why would I pay attention to an invincible enemy who attacks at random and can only be damaged after he activates an attack in a nebulous sweet spot that seems to change every time you see him? You can't even fight him with half the weapons because it only gets staggered by powerful blasts like the shotguns or ballista. The Marauder demands you play the game he wants without putting in the work to make you, the player, want to do so. The best attempt they give is the aforementioned double Marauder fight, because instead of choosing between a flower garden and hell, you have to divert your focus between 2 hells. So, to bring this back around, all this has led me to the conclusion that Doom Eternal is a control freak that tries to get its fix through multiple avenues of the game. Let's recap. Tutorials that teach you the most efficient way to play the game, the existence of an in-game efficient strategy, the limitation of ammo and the allocation of where this ammo is often best spent, runes that don't inspire as much synergy as the predecessors, and a mini-boss-like enemy that asks you to stop what you're doing and play the game in a specific way. The reason I call Doom Eternal the worst 8 out of 10 game is because it's a completely fine and oftentimes fun game that bears its flaws too openly. At least with other pretty good games, it'll take a bit of digging for me to find the flaws since I'm not very observant on first experiences, but Eternal so blatantly bears its back that I couldn't have ignored it if I tried, especially not on repeat playthroughs. But I suppose it's not such a bad thing. I'd rather an 8 out of 10 with clear flaws than anything below that because, you know, mind you, 8 out of 10 is still a pretty good score, despite how modern media discussion might muddy that sentiment. I suppose in the end, I'm happy, because it could always be worse. It could always be Doom Eternal's DLC.